All right, now we're recording the video part. Super fun. Okay, so you were my first sponsor, and I have to tell the story about how we started working together because I think it's so important, and certainly I would love to hear your perspective on how people should find a sponsor. But when I first got sober, I was going to the 12-step meetings, and I kept hearing about people doing steps 1, 2, and 3 and then relapsing. Like there was this all this anticipation and fear around step 4, and I was terrified of getting loaded. But I was also terrified of the women in the program. And but they kept telling me, oh, I have to find a woman sponsor. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so screwed. Because I spent a lot of time and energy like decorating the outside, but I didn't feel like I had anything to offer on the inside. But
Happens to a lot of us.
It does, right?
Yeah.
And I was all about external validation. So I was terrified that I had to work with another woman, and I had a hard time connecting in the very beginning. But I was so desperate to be sober. I was going to do anything that they told me to do, including find a woman sponsor. So there was this day where this woman remembered my name the second time she met me. And I was like, oh my God, it was as if the skies had parted and the sun was shining. And it was like, oh, this is the one. And I remember walking up to you being like, oh my God, would you be willing to listen to my inventory? And you know what you said to me? You said, I would be honored. And that leveled me. I was like, what? Like nobody had ever said that to me. But then you added a little caveat. You said, but we're going to start with step 1.
Yep.
And we did. And I think we did like a step a week in the beginning. It was a long time ago, but I remember you encouraging me to address the steps and the homework with the same level of intensity that I sought drugs and alcohol. And let's be honest, men. So I did everything you told me to do. You would say, hey, let's go to meet me at this place. And I would show up there, and there you'd be. And I was always surprised that you showed up, but you did. Oh my God, it was amazing. I remember one time you made me pray outside. I was so embarrassed. Girl, I was desperate to be sober. I did everything you told me to do. So at least that's how I remember it.
It sounds about right.
Do you have a different version of that story?
No, probably not too much. I remember, what I needed to, and just doing the whole being there for people. That's, that was really important in the beginning of my sobriety, was just finding somebody that I could talk to and not feel like I was being judged. Exactly. And I remember talking with my sponsor about how important that was.
Yeah.
So
not to feel
in
judged.
the beginning, it was a lot. It was a lot to reach out. And I did the same thing that you did with me. Is when I asked my sponsor, I was about 60 days sober, and I asked her to sponsor me, and she said she'd be honored to. And I was like, oh, you're honored to do something with nobody had ever been honored to do anything with me. And so it was a great adventure and a great journey to be able to walk that path with her. And so, then when she told me after I'd finished my 12 steps, and I'd finished them, and I was about 4.5 months sober.
Wow.
She told me that I had to sponsor women. I was like, no, don't make me do that. And I'm so grateful that she did, and all of the women and men that have been, part of my sobriety have been always a blessing to me, because I always learn something from people.
Absolutely. What is your sobriety date?
September 30th, 1991. Yeah,
'91.
I got sober when I was like 12.
Clearly.
No, I was 21 when I got sober, and had
Wow.
enough of the drugs and alcohol, and you know, wanted something different for my life. I didn't know if I wanted what AA had, but I
Right.
knew I wanted something different with my life. And
Yeah, absolutely.
it took it took some time for me to find that because I had a friend of mine that had been sober for probably about a year and a half, had joined our home group, Saturday Night Live, um, which is still my home group today.
Wow.
And she had joined them, and I just watched her life change. And so I didn't have, there was never any promotion of, hey, you need to get sober, because I had been, as a teenager and in high school, I had been using and drinking with her. And then she went and decided to get sober. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? What are you doing to me? But, you know, when she got sober, she just kind of left some little pamphlets out, you know, little booklets across her table, the Living Sober book, things like that. And I had no idea. I'd pick them up and relate to them.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
amazing.
when I called her in 1991, September 91, she was like, "Oh, you're ready."
Oh,
Yeah.
September 30, '91. That's amazing. Um, well, let's walk it back just a little bit, because I'm always curious about, and it's been a while since I heard your story, but maybe you can start out a little bit at the beginning about like what your family was, or family of origin was like, and why drugs and alcohol were a problem. Because a lot of people, drink and do drugs, and it's not necessarily a problem for them. You know what I mean? And then maybe we can talk about a little bit about, what life has been like since you've been sober. Because I know girl, you got so many stories.
There's a lot. Well, you know what? I come from drugs and alcohol. My background, I come from a lot of things that are not necessarily positive, and but I think one of the biggest, probably one of the key things is I was became insulin dependent diabetic when I was 11.
Oh,
And
you were 11.
so drugs and alcohol and diabetes, yeah, that didn't make a good mix. And you know, I've been paying the price for quite some time, and that's okay because those are the decisions I made. But I didn't. I felt different,
Mm-hmm.
really did. And you know, I growing up, I bounced from house to house, from you know, school to school to school,
Why were you
and
bouncing around?
what's that?
Well, I'm sorry. Why were you bouncing around?
Because we just did. It was part of my family history where we never stayed in one place for very long.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, moving all around, never getting grounded in school, never getting grounded in friendships. Like I hear people talk about these long-term friendships, and I'm like, now I only know them because of sobriety now, but I don't, you know, not from childhood.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was definitely challenging, and you know, I'm grateful today for that as I can see it now.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't grateful for it when I got sober. I was
Right.
pretty angry little kid,
Hmm.
pretty angry, and growing up as a teenager, I was pretty angry.
What was your anger about?
There were lots of things as a child that, you know, not having stability, not being with my mom at the time, not having the security that lots of kids, you know, should have, and being able to kind of do my own thing, which never really gave me, so I didn't have a lot of parameters, you know, so I was like, oh, you're gonna go here, I'm gonna do this and do that, but it was all my own decisions.
Right.
um, because I didn't have any parental guidance. Let's put it that way. I had
What
very
was,
little of that.
how come you weren't with your mom? Was drugs and alcohol part of your family history?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So at 6, 8, and 10, my brother and sister and I went to live with my grandparents.
Okay.
So
Her
yeah,
parents?
yeah, her parents.
Okay. Where was your dad?
Uh, don't know where he's at. Don't know who particularly he is. Never been a part of my life. Have had a couple of stepdads,
Okay.
and some not so wonderful male figures.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way. Come from a background of sexual abuse.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was pretty angry. I had
Yeah.
a lot of anger, and I use sports to. I'm a tomboy, and I use sports to deal with a lot of the stuff that I had. And I was trying to get good grades, but really just at a place where alcohol and drugs were the easiest for me to get access to and to kind of take me away from all that.
And take you away from all that, meaning like all the inner turmoil that you were feeling as a result of abuse and neglect and, not having boundaries. Is that a fair statement?
I think that hits it right on the button. Yeah. And drugs and alcohol, never got into heavy drugs or anything like that, but I got into enough that got me in trouble, with drugs and alcohol, just the way I used them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What kind of trouble, like what kind of consequences were you having? Did you get in trouble at school or was it legal trouble or?
well, I did a lot of running from the cops the way that we were situated. Oh yeah,
Shocking.
and shh, don't tell anybody. Um,
Your secret is
and,
safe with
and
me.
don't ever say my last name. Just kidding. Yeah, it was the inside stuff. It
Hmm.
was running from the cops. I've had to pay dearly now for the consequences of being diabetic and drinking and drinking and drinking and
Yeah.
not necessarily taking care of myself. Because back when I became diabetic, they said, "Oh, here's an orange and a syringe. Go figure out how to do your diabetes." I
Are
mean, they
you
didn't have what they have
serious?
these days. Yeah. So it's
Wow.
very different in the early 80s.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
they didn't have the JDRF or whatever it is, the junior diabetes. They didn't have any of that. So I didn't meet my first diabetic until I was 18 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
things have changed.
yeah, thank God.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
God.
God. Yeah, for those coming up. Well, listen, I mean, that's a lot to deal with. That's enough to drive anybody to drink. I mean, it doesn't sound like you had a lot of, coping skills shared
No,
with you, right? Like drugs and alcohol. I don't know if this is your story, but drugs and alcohol were definitely my coping skill.
yeah.
Learning.
That's what I used. I used that. I did well in school. And I was a big time jock.
Mhm.
And I mean, between the drugs and the alcohol and, you know, trying to figure out like who I was, where I was, I used the alcohol mostly to numb
Mhm.
is what I did. So I didn't have to think about the things that were happening or happened or,
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I didn't want to feel all that stuff. Yeah, we learn to disconnect,
Yeah.
right? We learn to disconnect from our feelings and then it's no wonder that we're baffled by life. It's because our feelings are actually there to help us navigate life. But when we're disconnected from them because we don't know how to manage them,
Right.
then, life is very confusing. So it sounds like kind of had a friend who Eskimoed you in out of the cold into, I
Yeah.
heard that expression recently. I thought that was so cute. Um, but okay, so you were introduced to the program via a friend who got sober, and you were 21 when that happened?
I was 21. She introduced me. I hadn't even drank at that point. I mean, my last drink was back in really bad drink and drunk was back in December of 1990,
Oh,
right
wow.
during the new year. And
Okay.
so I had gotten sick again because of of the alcohol.
Hmm.
And I, decided I had um, a doctor, sitting there telling me, you're going to die if you keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. And I was like, I'll show you. And boy, did I. I stopped drinking, but I was taking a lot of pill form medications, and
Mm-hmm.
because I had access to it. And I had stopped drinking, but before I was 21. And then I didn't actually stop taking the pills and all that until probably the middle of September of 1991.
Okay.
So my last drunk was pretty wild. I was raised in Southern California until I was 16, and then came up here to Northern California to live with my great aunt and uncle. And I had a friend down there that she was my road dog,
Hmm.
and my friend Wendy, and she invited me down to come hang out. And I did. And we were having this New Year's Eve party, and I showed up down south somewhere around the 30th of December. And I came to in Northern California
Oh my
with
God.
my vehicle somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd of January. 5-day
Wow.
blackout. Yeah. Don't really remember
Yeah.
much of anything. So
Right.
when I ended up in the hospital again, that's when my doctor was like, what are your choices here?
Okay.
so, so I
Pretty.
decided to stop drinking. And it wasn't for any other reason than just to spite her. It's really what it
You
was.
stubborn.
So, hey, the day after I quit drinking, I quit smoking cigarettes.
Wow.
And yeah, I was a stark raving maniac for lots and lots of months. And
So, what made
it
you,
took,
so if you had stopped drinking and using, what made you go to a 12-step program? Like I see that you saw your friend was having this transformation. That was really what made you want to join?
yeah, well, no, I was still taking a bunch of pill medication.
What
So
kind?
at that point, I was still taking a bunch of pills, bunch of
Oh,
pill
okay.
medication. So
Got it.
I just, it's like we say, we just switched addiction.
Yeah, yeah, I did that too.
When I quit smoking pot when I was 17, I went more and more into drinking. Then I stopped drinking, I went more and more into pills, right? So just switching addiction. And,
Okay.
um, and the truth is, yeah, I saw her life change, and I saw it change drastically.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I didn't know if I wanted what you guys had, but I sure know I didn't want what I had.
Yeah.
And I believe my higher power was looking after me the whole time. And I didn't know that I was actually playing on a clean and sober softball team before I got sober.
Were you really?
And that's where I met Debbie Beat, who is my sponsor today.
Still,
I met
so
Don
she was your
G
first sponsor and has stayed your sponsor this whole time?
all this time. And she was
Wow.
actually on the clean and sober softball team with me. And I didn't
Oh.
know what clean and sober was. I just, was playing softball. So, I think somebody had a hand in all of that.
Yeah.
Now
Did
that
you
I,
grow up with any kind of concept of a higher power?
um, my great grandma, my little grandma, this is my heart
Your
and
little
soul of
grandma?
her. Um, she introduced me to like unity. So her thing was always the white light. and I never grew up in a church or religion, or so I was really always open to things that worked for me, and church wasn't really my thing.
Mhm.
Um, but I could get into a concept of a God,
Okay.
and but I didn't know what it was. I had no background, no training. So,
It's
I
almost,
love the thought of spirituality.
yeah, that's almost better that you didn't have like some sort of negative experience to overcome.
Right.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. People have like a negative experience or interpretation of, God, and they have to overcome that hurdle first, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Which can be pretty tough one sometimes.
I know I see some people struggle with it. And, I always heard that if you have a problem with God, chances are you have a problem with someone else's God.
I don't know. I don't claim anything, but I just know that what I found through my experience,
Mhm.
and it's continued to grow. I'm so grateful for that, because when I first got sober, I was like, okay, what is this like God thing that people are talking about, and how do I get that?
Hmm.
People with lots and lots of years of sobriety saying that, and then I got to watch their recovery and how they went through, things in life.
Right.
And that's really how I picked my sponsor. And my sponsor at the time was like um super nature, super girly, super just I don't know. There was something, there was a sweetness about her. But what I really found about my sponsor, and when we talk about finding the sponsor that works for you, I had seen her in several meetings before I'd asked her, and I just remember how much she used to light up the room. Like she would
Wow.
walk in and she would light up the room,
This is Debbie.
and um, and that's what I wanted. I was like, how do I get that? And
She had what you wanted.
yeah, absolutely. It wasn't about the cars and because
Material.
she didn't have a car. Well, she had a dollar car. She had an old Vega that smoked
A
out.
dollar
She
car.
was going to school, didn't have a lot of money. I mean, but so it wasn't about that for me. It was really about how do I get that light like she has.
Yeah, I can listen, I gotta tell you, I love her. She is amazing.
Yes, she is. She's an amazing woman.
Yeah,
So
she helped me a lot. When Katie passed away, she was
yeah,
the one. I was like, "It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine." And then she looked at me. She goes, "Oh, okay, honey. If that's what you need to, if it
yeah,
was like, okay, if that's what you need to believe right now, okay." And then as soon as she said that, I was like, "Oh my God!" Then I realized what was actually happening, and we subsequently lost Katie, but she was the one that was there for me at like such a terrible moment. She was just like such an angel, so sweet. She just
yeah,
has, like you were saying, that way of lighting up a room. Her spirit and her energy is just so
yeah,
pure. I just love her.
yeah,
She's magical. So
yeah.
you guys, that's amazing. So tell me what it was like to work steps with her.
Well, I have to say that you see
She
all the
laughs.
sweetness and light she has. Um, she is. She doesn't play around, because I mean, really, if you think about it, the 12 steps are there to help us deal with life. But when we're newly sober, I share this all the time, that the very first time that I met with Deb, we were at a Swenson's, and I was told to bring my big book, my 12 and 12, a writing pad, a pen, and a dictionary. Yes, that's when we carried the Webster's
Right. It
Dictionary.
was a
So I
while
was
ago.
like, oh, this is serious. And I will never forget sitting across from her, and she said, you know, um, open up the big book and tell me what's on that first page. And the very first page of the third edition of the big book, there's nothing. And I said, there's nothing on this page. And she said, that's exactly what you know about staying sober, Kim. She cut me
That
right
is
to
a
the
dirty
quick.
trick.
Cut that ego. So yeah, I'm working through the steps. She had me, like I said, she had me through the 12 steps, and in probably a total of 68, 4.5 months sober, I was sponsoring women.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah.
it was like, this is how we get out of ourselves. We give it away in order to keep it. Of course, back then I didn't have any concept of what that was,
Yeah.
but so grateful for that today.
Yeah. Did you struggle at all with the powerlessness over alcohol and the unmanageability part? Because you had already quit drinking on your own, kind of.
Not necessarily the powerless over the alcohol, but the powerlessness over the feeling of wanting to change the way, like, because I had come off of a bunch of pills at the time, that was the thing that I was using to maintain, right, in order to not feel my feelings. It was more that at the time than the actual alcohol.
Hmm.
Although alcohol had taken me, had taken me to my knees several times,
Right.
with my diabetes. So of course, I just, I'll switch from, scotch to brandy.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what I did when I changed from alcohol to
Pills.
the pill form of alcohol. Addiction is an addiction. And,
Yeah.
the thing that got me was just that was harder to come off of, because I had been using it so much. So I had great access to it, like, lots of people did back in the early days.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it was easy to get a hold of. So coming off of that, I mean, it would have been whatever I was using at the time,
Right.
difficult.
Yeah.
And,
That's hard.
alcohol, I still, I mean, it's still, it's one of those things, even after 28 years sober, that it's still like, creeps in and it's like, hello, I'm still here.
I know. Yeah.
Don't forget about me.
I know.
Remember,
Right.
you can't take me in any way you want to, in any form. I
Right.
remember being sick one time, and I was at the hospital, and they had given me some medication for my stomach, and boy, it kicked in that craving for alcohol like I have never experienced.
Oh my God, that
And
is so scary. I see,
yeah,
I mean, and I'm sure you've seen this too, as a lot of people relapse around surgeries.
yeah, yeah,
Very scary. And you had some,
yeah. I've had
it's,
plenty of those
I
myself.
was gonna say, I don't want to bring it up, but you had a couple of pretty major I think I was newly sober, like, newly being in my first, few years or whatever, when you had a kidney transplant.
Yeah, I've had two, well, yeah, diabetes kind of has taken me down a path that, it's definitely made me have my challenges.
Yeah.
And I had a kidney transplant in 2002, and I had another one. So my first kidney was given to me by my mom,
Okay.
who, thank God for the program, but she was not a person I liked when I first got sober in any way, shape, or form.
I know.
But
Yeah.
through the process of the steps, the healing begins, right?
Hmm.
And so that kidney lasted about 12 years, which is what it does with a live donor and diabetes, the type 1 diabetes. And then, I needed another one, and somebody in our fellowship,
I
which
know
I
he was on the
believe,
podcast. Yes,
yes,
John.
you did a podcast with him.
He's
He's my angel.
amazing.
He gave me another kidney in 2014. We just celebrated, 5 years with it
Wow.
and doing well.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and there's been, diabetes has done a lot of things. It's, I've been blind for a year. I've lost a couple toes. Most recently, I've had 3 strokes. The
Yeah,
most,
that wasn't that long ago.
yeah, the most recent one is really affected me the most, though. And I'm so grateful that I can walk, although I walk like a toddler, but I can walk. And, I'm able to do a lot of things that, very, very, very fortunate and blessed
Mm.
to, be sitting here with you today. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
grateful that you're okay. And I know you've been through the ringer. Um, and you still continue to, participate in the fellowship. And I know you sponsor women and you still have a sponsor. What keeps you so involved after all this time?
I would honestly have to say that I still carry that desperation, desperate as the dying could be, just like I was when I first got sober.
Wow.
Um, I about 2.5 years ago, I had a mentor come into my life, and a male, somebody who I looked up to in the program. I didn't know that he was going to be able to do anything specifically for me, but I reached out to him, and he just gave me a new perspective on the steps, and being able to keep going. I mean,
Mhm.
what really honestly, what is our alternative? And I just choose to every day, first of all, I wake up and I'm grateful. Like I woke up. Like that's a
Yeah.
big deal today. The older you
Yeah.
get, the more that comes into play. But get to wake up and be, sober, and I still want to give back what I've been freely given. I love what I have received from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I couldn't do it without the fellowship. And like I said, Saturday Night Live has been my home group um, for all these years. But I know lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people that just they've impacted my life in a way that continues to make me want to get up and go
Yeah.
and give back,
And give back.
you know.
Yeah,
So,
there
because I
there
can
is.
never repay that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is something so magical that happens when you're able to communicate the message that gave you relief, and you can see it wash over that person that you're talking to, and you can see the relief come over their face, right? And it's like, maybe all that suffering I did wasn't for nothing.
Right.
It
I
it
watched it wash over your face,
I
young
know. And
lady.
look at me now, 25 years later. Yeah,
Yeah,
25 and a half.
yeah, to see the lights come on in somebody's eyes and to see the change and their life change, and yeah, getting married and having children. I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a gift that we have that I always say it's not, it's not something that people should pass up.
No, it's just so magical.
So,
I mean, and you have seen all my milestones, right? The
yeah,
meeting Bob and getting married and having kids and, the whole thing. My oldest is 19, and my children have never had to see me loaded. Yeah. Isn't that
yeah,
amazing? It
yeah.
is. I am
And
so.
when you get an opportunity to stay sober and not die, I throw that in there. If you're open and awake to all of it, you get to see it through many, many people.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's been a true blessing because my sponsor taught me in the very beginning how to reach out and to get out of myself.
Oh,
And
hugely important.
do you remember when Saturday Night Live used to pass out 24-hour desire chips at
Oh,
every
sure.
meeting?
Oh, yeah.
And when I'd sit next to her in a meeting, she'd hit me with her elbow. She'd be like, "Remember that newcomer's name?" And I'd be like, "Why do I have to do that?" And she'd be like, "Now go up there and get a chip." And I'm like, "What do I have to do
Oh,
that?" And
God bless her, because you remembered my name.
see,
Nobody ever remembers my name the second time they meet me. It's like, what was your name again? You remember it.
but
That was such
that
a big
makes an
deal to me.
impact, right?
Huge, huge impact. I was
Yeah,
terrified of the women, but you remembered my name.
yeah, yeah. Don't ask me to try and remember everybody's name today, but but
I feel you,
I
sister.
love being able to help the newcomer and help women that have been here for periods of time, men and
Yeah,
women. I mean, I just finished
sure.
working the steps with a male that he said, I'm still going to use my sponsor, but I really would like you to help me through this process like you went through it.
Yeah,
And I'm so grateful for those moments
yeah,
because I know it changes my life and definitely probably changes theirs. That's my hope, is that it changes
absolutely.
theirs.
Yeah, it was my experience. I remember here in the very beginning that if you work the steps will work you. And, I have found that to be true. And I don't need to know why. I don't need to know how. I'm going through another round of steps now. I'm doing a big book awakening, and I almost quit. And what I realize is that, you know, the pride and ego of long-term sobriety is really dangerous. You know,
Yes,
my life is
very,
yeah,
very
it can be really
dangerous.
dangerous, right? It's like, I think I know something. I've been sober a long time. My life is working. I just have this one little area
Mm.
of my life that is challenging, but it's overwhelming. You know how that goes. And so, but I came to that place where I was like, I don't know any other way that's going to transform me. I am a seeker. I listen to, like, I love my online teachers, the authors who share all their stuff. But I still have never found a process that is more transformative than the process of the 12 steps. And I don't understand why, and I don't know how. But girl, I had just had this huge breakthrough around step one that I had been struggling with for months. And I came to that place again where I had the breakthrough, and I was like, I don't know why I ever bucked the
Mhm.
system, or I don't know why the resistance. But I am so grateful for the women in the program who are patient enough to continue to encourage me, right? It's like that encouragement we
Yeah,
get is so important.
yeah.
So it's a
Well,
magical process.
the ego is so subtle too, and the
Yeah.
longer we stay sober,
The
um,
harder it is to see.
yeah, and one of the things that doing this process the last 2.5 years was really, really eye-opening for me was how do I remain teachable
Hmm.
so that I can remain humble, so that I can remain sober. And,
Oh, brilliant.
recovery has been, I mean, it's so important about the time because it's one day at a time. And how do we do that and show others? But it's also the recovery. How much do you do that peeling of the onion? It's like, oh, here's an onion, and you go through the layers and you unpeel the layers, and poof, it's another big onion again.
And it
Right?
makes you cry every time you feel that layer.
Well, because it gets real,
Yeah,
right? It gets deeper.
yeah,
My ego gets subtler.
yeah.
It's not this,
It's not
out here
obvious.
kind of stuff. It's the stuff inside here.
Yeah.
And how do I make a change with that? How do I get to that? And I tell you, Arlena, the only way today that I'm able to do that is massive, massive amounts of step 11. And I do meditation in the morning and I do it at night, um, because it works for me.
Hmm.
And the peace and calm that it brings in my life is immense. I shared with you earlier, I just put down my puppy, Sachi,
Oh,
that I had for I had her for 14 years. That's half of my sobriety. And I didn't realize that
Yeah.
until somebody had said something. And I was like, just another level of awareness, another level of deepening of how important and short, really, life is.
Yeah.
And being able to be in recovery and to share that, like, I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but it really is always an honor and a privilege to share my story,
Hmm.
because by any rights I shouldn't be here,
Right.
like a
Yeah.
lot of us.
Like a lot
And
of us. Yeah.
we've had so many people pass from this disease, including my family members.
Yeah.
And getting to that place where it's like, there is one thing that I have never ever said in sobriety, and that is that, oh, I got this.
Oh, yeah. No.
I've never ever said that. So,
Right.
because I don't got shit. You know what I have today? I have this moment, and for me, it's really important to remember to stay in that, because, gosh, we have so many things in life that can take us so far out there,
It's
and we
true.
forget about. I'm sitting here. I have my drink bottle that says "Live in the moment."
That's good.
And because I
That's a
need
water
to.
bottle, right?
Yes, that is a water bottle with water in it.
Podcast.
Come on, girl. So,
Listen, I love that. I love that. And I hate to do this to you. We have to wrap up, but we might have to do a part two, because I feel like I have so many more questions for you. I feel like we need to do a part two, but I got to tell you, I am so grateful. This was a long time coming. We planned
yeah,
many times, we're not able to do it. So we might have to plan on a part two, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out to do
absolutely.
this. It is truly my honor. So
Oh, if I could give
I
you a
love
hug right
you.
now, I would.
I know, I know. I love you to death, girl. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Love
Thanks for
you.
letting me pass it on.
We'll do it again.
All right, bye, sweetie.
Bye, love.